We've done it, ladies and gents. We've actually done it. We've survived the Formula One winter, and we're now here in the summer in Australia. Welcome to round one of the 2019 season, bringing us back to Melbourne, our first race preview of the year. And it seems a little bit bizarre that this is already my second season of covering Formula One over on YouTube. So I'm chuffed. I'm really excited to get the season underway, and there's a few changes already. Starting off with, in the background you can see there's going to be a lap at the beginning of every weekend of the circuit, so if you're new to the circuit you can get a slight understanding, if you want, of the circuit layout, but it's more just there for a little bit of fun, a little bit of more entertainment on the screen for you guys. And I've tried to add a few new different graphics on the screen this year to try and make it a little bit more fun, a little bit more engaging, and I suppose easygoing on the eye if I possibly can do. So just thought I'd let you know that I'm trying to change up a few different bits for you guys to try and make it more enjoyable in 2019. But the main reason you're here is to look forward and also look backwards. Firstly, we're going to look forward to the Melbourne Grand Prix, but we're also going to take a mini trip backwards, kind of gloss over testing a little bit, but also the main bit is look at practice this morning. Practice 1, FP1 and FP2. Some interesting stories coming out of FP1 and FP2. A few mistakes from high-profile drivers, but also some surprises up and down the grid. But as I mentioned, this is our first race of the year. Last year, this race was won by Sebastian Vettel. It was Lewis Hamilton on pole with Kimi Raikkonen in second, but after, I suppose, some sneaky strategies from Ferrari, Vettel was able to jump Hamilton after a virtual safety car period and eventually took the lead for Ferrari. It was Hamilton who got P2 and Raikkonen ended up in P3. However, some of the big stories from that race were Daniel Ricciardo, who over that weekend got a penalty in practice for going over, well, doing one extra lap through the red flag. That was a very bizarre penalty back a year ago now. Again, bizarre to think that was a year ago, but that was very odd to start off the season. And in front of his home crowd, a really strong race back through the field, fighting with the two Haas cars and Verstappen. Verstappen had a bit of a spin, but the big story I still took away from that race, and I think the biggest effect that had on the championship, that race last year, was Haas. My boys, Haas F1, both cars doing so well. Could have finished 4th and 5th, ended the race with no points whatsoever. Both of them DNFing because of pit stops. That will be on the team's mind this weekend, knowing that the midfield this year is going to be even closer between many of those midfield teams, so any points lost are going to make the world of difference come the end of the year. If you've not been keeping up to date with Formula One news over the winter, don't worry too much. There's been a few changes here, there and everywhere, but it's generally quite manageable. As you would have just seen on screen, Daniel Ricciardo has made the switch from Red Bull over to Renault, which caused a whole cascade of changes, including that man on screen right now, Charles Leclerc, going to Ferrari. That is probably the most high-profile transfer of all. We've got 4 rookies on the grid this year. Lando Norris, as you can see on the right-hand side on your screen, he's driving for McLaren. George Russell will be in at Williams. Alex Albon at Toro Rosso. And Antonio Giovinazzi, his full rookie year at Alfa Romeo. However, he's done 2 races before, so yeah. Sainz was also in that previous picture. He has made the move to McLaren as well. Racing Point, Sport Pacer Racing Point, they're the new name for what was previously known as Force India. They have kept the services of Sergio Perez, the guy who was able to get a fluky podium last year in Baku, the only driver out of the top 3 teams to get a podium last year, but they've let go Esteban Ocon, and in comes Lance Stroll, the how do we describe Lance Stroll? The very wealthy boy, we shall say, who his father now owns the team. But that is a rough roundup of some of the bigger stories. Another one I've just got to quickly say, Robert Kubica, he is returning to Formula One after missing 8 seasons. His last race came in the final race in 2010, a rally incident. I'm sure you've all heard plenty about this, but as a previous Robert Kubica fan, it is amazing to see him on the grid, and all the words that all the drivers up and down the grid have already been saying this weekend. It's really a dream coming true for many Formula One fans, and of course for Robert himself. But looking at FP1 then, as you can see, Williams, where Kubica is racing this year, they're not on the times for either FP1 or FP2. They are, but these are just the top 10 times I'm going to be using this year. Also, any constructive criticism would be brilliant, but also if you just want to throw criticism for the sake of it, that's cool with me as well. But looking at the times then, let's start off with FP1. And as you can see, it's a familiar name topping the timesheets once again. Lewis Hamilton with a 1:23.5, closely followed by Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc, both in the Ferrari, with Max Verstappen in P4 for Red Bull. Disclaimer for the season, Red Bull on these graphics I'm going to be using will be purple, sometimes blue. The main issue with Red Bull is the navy blue doesn't work well with black behind it. So I've had a few comments about that over the winter, but I just want to clear that up there. Red Bull will be purple on the majority of my graphics this year. Bottas was in 5th. A difficult start to the season last year for Bottas. Very unlucky. He's going to want to try and turn that around as best he can, considering the form he ended last year. On Raikkonen was P6, Kvyat P7, Gasly P8. A difficult start for testing for Gasly for Red Bull. 9th Magnussen and 10th for Hulkenberg. In the second session, it was a Mercedes 1-2. Hamilton in leading once again, with Bottas in P2. P3 and 4 were the two Red Bulls. Verstappen once again trying to push and fight for those top spots, coming in 3rd this time, with Gasly an improvement on FP1 in P4. Vettel was P5 with Raikkonen again P6. The Alfa Romeo really proving to look quite good this year. Hulkenberg was 7th with Ricciardo in 8th, Charles Leclerc in 9th, and Grosjean rounding out the top 10 in FP2. But one of the big stories, I would say over the entire weekend so far, is actually the pace of Mercedes. Now, if you're a casual Formula 1 fan, you might not be aware, but over testing in the winter, a lot of people have basically said that Mercedes could be anywhere to half a second behind Ferrari. So the fact that already, so early on in testing, many of those critics are already retracting those statements, which infuriates me to a degree, because over testing, so many of us on the YouTube side of things were saying, you just can't read into testing. You really can't. And even today, people retracted their statements saying that, oh, Mercedes, yeah, they're the #1 team. You don't know. It's just practice. It is just practice. And the realistic, I suppose, description of practice is that we just don't know, and that you can never take anything away from practice. And I get sick and tired of saying that, but really sometimes you do have to throw it out there because people forget, and you don't want to get carried away with the times. But of course it can show you slight indications, and one of the clear indications is that the midfield, oh my goodness, it's going to be close. It's going to be so close. And again, if people have dabbed in a little bit to F1 over the winter, but not too much, you probably, again, you won't be aware, but you've got the likes of Renault looking really strong. Alfa Romeo coming out of nowhere looking really strong. Haas, once again, they're going to try and prove to the world that they can be best of the rest. McLaren have taken steps forward. And Toro Rosso, I mean, already this weekend we're getting excuses from team bosses saying that B teams shouldn't be allowed and that Toro Rosso is going to be too quick. Haas as well, just as you can see on screen, a slight update to the livery with an extra bit of gold on the back of the car. But I just wanted to throw out there that we're not going to be able to know any of the running order until qualifying starts in the very early hours of tomorrow morning. It's about 5 o'clock UK time on both days, but that does include some of the build-up shows. So I would recommend, if you're planning on just watching the qualifying or the race without any build-up, then I would recommend you seeking out on the TV guides and all that goodness. But as you can see on screen again, no chance of rain this weekend, or at least it's going to be very unlikely for rain. So it should be a pretty straightforward Grand Prix, a circuit which isn't notorious for overtaking. What am I expecting to see? Well, these are my... oh, blimey, I can't believe I'm showing these. These are my predictions for round 1 of the season. And yes, I've been very optimistic with a Charles Leclerc win, Lewis Hamilton P2, and a Romain Grosjean P3. But let me get this straight. This is, I suppose, a light-hearted prediction to start off the season. And of course, I would love to see this. It's not too far-fetched. I would love to see a really chaotic race, a couple of safety cars, a big smash into turn 1 that Jonty's Corner has predicted, and we're all waiting to prove him wrong and say you can't predict anything. But This is what I've gone with. I think Leclerc and Ferrari are still going to be really strong. I think Vettel's going to be in with a chance as well. And Hamilton's got pole here the last couple of years, but hasn't quite been able to put it together in the race. And of course, Grosjean, my favourite driver, I want to see him get his first podium for Haas. Black and gold, finally back on the grid. And of course, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. What is your top 3 prediction? And feel free to do it after qualifying or whenever. But that is my prediction, my 1, 2 and 3. My pole position qualifying prediction, I'm going to go with Lewis Hamilton. Not really a surprise there. But that is it for the first race preview of the season. As always, you can join my fantasy league. The link and the code will be in the description. Makes it easier to copy for you. But you got to get in quick if you want to get there before Melbourne. But thank you for watching. Let me know your predictions below, and I'll see you in the next one.